Hey guys, tonight we find ourselves perched on the edge of a windy, craggy coast at the base of a towering lighthouse. Imagine the sound of a foghorn moaning in the distance as it battles with the persistent sea winds. Yeah, you probably won't survive this without at least a yawn or two. Do you hear the crashing waves? They've been playing their relentless melody against the rocks for as long as anyone in town remembers. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It's dark out there, but as you look up, the lighthouse beam circles slicing through the mist. It's mesmerizing. What's the time and place for you tonight? Share your local time and location in the comments. It's always fun to see from where everyone's tuning in. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself inside the lighthouse. The air is tinged with salt and the faint aroma of coffee. There's a warmth from the stove, pushing back the cold edges of the night. The keeper, a man with weathered hands, traces the horizon with his gaze, even though it's still hours from sunrise. You sip your third cup of coffee, the warmth spreading slowly a buffer against the chill that creeps in through every crack and seam of the ancient structure. The keeper's job is solitary but not lonely. There's a strange comfort in solitude, a kind of peace that comes with the knowledge that your responsibilities are clear. Watch the sea, maintain the light. It's said lighthouses are like anchors, standing between land and sea, guiding those out in the dark, just like Pharos of Alexandria did over 2,000 years ago, one of the original 7 wonders of the world. You wonder if mariners really ever felt safer seeing those lights, or if they sometimes wondered what exactly lay beneath those flickering waters. The croak of the old wooden chair under you echoes softly in the vast space. You shift slightly, feeling the chill from the stone walls seep through. An owl hoots in the distance, a creature of the night like you. You listen for a minute, imagining what it would be like to soar silently above the cliffs. The wind ruffling feathers in rhythm to your heartbeat. There's a logbook that sits on the desk filled with meticulous scrawlings of tides and weather patterns. The keeper's logs seem more like poems to you, each entry a brief meditation on the sea's moods and mysteries. You thumb through it casually, though you suspect it may be something you shouldn't do, marveling that someone could see such beauty in something so succinct. Laughing softly, you think I should start my own log. Maybe something like coffee hot, weather cold, mood introspective. You chuckle at your own whimsy. Sometimes it feels like the sea's whispers are contagious. Historians still debate whether these solitary sentinels along the coast truly understood what their light meant to those distant ships. They were safe, secure, behind their stone walls, day after day tending the light. Did they marvel at the world outside? Or did it eventually blur into the comfort of routine? As the hours drift by, your eyes grow heavy, the hypnotic work of the sea and wind lulling you into a dreamlike state. The foghorn moans again, a single unwavering note. It reminds you of monks chanting in some forgotten abbey, or maybe a distant whale calling out across the miles of shifting water. you can't help but feel a deep connection with all these things that endure through the ages, unyielding in purpose. You wonder, with a wry grin, what a whale might think of the lighthouse. Do they notice the silhouettes towering above? Or do they find the distant lights and sudden sound intrusions mildly rude? The fog starts to thin, revealing glimpses of the endless ocean beyond. The keeper rises moving with a slow, deliberate grace that suggests years of practice, and you mirror his movements, drawn by the curiosity of what morning might bring. The air seems sharper now, and your every breath feels like it cuts a path through the thin mist. Dawn is approaching, though the sky is still wrapped in dark blue, bruised by the line of deep indigo that hints at the sun's imminent return. You reach for the coffee again. It's grown cold, but it's a comfort all the same. Out there, just where the sky kisses the horizon, you think you might see the earth tiptoe into the new day. You smile slightly because every day the world wakes up, and every day you get to see it first, wrapped in this cozy cocoon of wood and stone. There's something grand about that, a fact you suspect the ancient lighthouse builders understood very well. They knew that if they could hold back the dark even a little, it was enough to make sailors breathe easier and trust in the path ahead. And as the keeper adjusts the wick and refills the lamp's oil, for yet another cycle, you can't help but marvel at this quiet dance between darkness and light. You think maybe just for tonight being here is enough, standing watch alongside the ghosts of those who've done so for centuries. With another stretch, the tension from a long night fades, and you settle in, ready to witness this midpoint between night's end and day's birth. The golden hour when for a brief moment the lighthouse is as much a part of the dawn as the sky and sea. You step into the lighthouse, the heavy door creaking on its ancient hinges and closing behind you with a finality that seems to mark the beginning of your watch. The stones beneath your boots are cool and slightly damp, retaining that lingering chill from the ocean that seems to seep through every corner of this solitary tower. As you start your 12-hour shift, a blend of readiness and isolation washes over you, a feeling that every keeper has known well. The air is saturated with the tang of salt wind and sea, a constant reminder of the lighthouse's steadfast vigil against the restless waves outside. You remind yourself that these shifts aren't a standard 9 to 5. Here, time is shaped differently, molded by the rhythms of light and dark, solitude and storm. Drawing in a deep breath, you begin your climb up the spiraling stone staircase. With each step, the assurance of your task becomes a beat in your heart, matched by the gently increasing sound of the wind outside, a soft roar growing in crescendo. Legends say some of these towers date back hundreds of years, silently watching over sailors, as if echoing the light of ancient stars. Historians still debate whether the famed lighthouse in Alexandria could really be seen for almost 30 miles out to sea. You wonder if some keeper, in an age gone by, had ever leaned against cool stones just like this, eyes fixed on the horizon, pondering the same vastness of the ocean. At the first landing, you pause, allowing a small smile at that unending debates that, just like these walls, stand through time. Eventually, you reach the lantern room, Smooth glass windows encircle you, offering an uninterrupted view of the ever-shifting seascape. Here, the light from the massive lens is a comforting beacon of your charge. You imagine it as a giant eye blinking solemnly across the water, reassuring all who venture into these waters that they are seen and that they are safe. The air here is slightly warmer, the machinery that drives the light gently humming in the background. The familiarity of the sound and feel is akin to having a watchful companion in this isolated post. You exhale slowly, shoulders relaxing just a little bit as you look around, ensuring everything is where it should be. Outside, the weather can change swiftly. On calm nights, the moonlight dances off the waves in 1,000 shimmering reflections. But storms, they could whip up in a fury, the winds howling like a sea dragon waves, battering the rocks below with savage intensity. You know these elements have been the downfall of more than one vessel, which makes your duty here at this lighthouse feel all the weightier. Once they say a keeper fashioned his cloak from the sail of a shipwreck, a piece of tragedy transformed into something hopeful. It's almost funny how resourceful lighthouse keepers had to be. From fixing anything that breaks, to sometimes even cooking meals from whatever the sea provides, a lifestyle so taxing and yet curiously rewarding. But tonight the sea is surprising, serene, allowing you time to settle into your perch. You take a moment to run your fingers over the intricate brass fittings of the light, marveling at how they've managed to retain their polish despite the relentless assault of humid air. You wonder how many hands have touched this exact spot, sharing in their silent musings with the ghosts of past watchmen. The silence of the room is vast, occasionally interrupted by a distant gull or the soft thud of a wave against the sturdy stones. You lower yourself onto the narrow bench against the wall, feeling the gentle reassurance of the wood polished smooth by countless shifts before yours. You close your eyes briefly, listening to the rhythmic sound of the waves, letting it become your pulse, lulling you into a state of calm alertness. You think of the stories you've heard, of how sometimes mirages appear on the horizon, entire ships shimmering into existence, only to vanish at the blink of an eye. You idly wonder whether these apparitions are fragments of the past drawn forward by the relentless call of the sea, a whimsical notion that seems quite apt on such a night. As you smile at the fanciful thought, a gentle realization blossoms within you. There is comfort in this isolation, in being a beacon amidst darkness. Though it's quiet and you're alone, you are never truly lonely in the company of these musings and the ceaseless symphony of the horizon. With a faint chuckle, you think about how weird it is to be thankful for the storms, because they bring change, something different to anticipate in this steady routine. As your eyes scan the horizon, searching for any telltale flickers of distress, the thought occurs that perhaps, just perhaps, you've seen a flash of light in the distance, a signal from an unseen ship that needs this light, your light. It's this remote possibility you think that holds you here, linking you to all those brave souls who navigate the seas. Time passes in the timeless way it always does here, without hurry, without rest, each minute stretching seamlessly from one to the next. You look up at the stars, those ancient travelers that have guided sailors for eons. their cold light intertwined with the warmth of your own. The lighthouse stands tall against the setting sun, its silhouette framed by the chilly blues and purples of the oncoming night. The waves crash rhythmically against the rocky shore, and you can just about hear the call of distant gulls over the thundering surf. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of coffee strong enough to snap you awake just by breathing in its heady aroma. It's the kind of brew that could put hairs on your chest, or as some cheeky sailors would have it, strip paint off old shutters. You find yourself in the middle of nightly routines, clad in cozy woolens, listening to the hum of the ocean outside. A few other keepers bustle around the small kitchen, performing their own wakefulness rituals. One of them, eyes shadowed by fatigue, belts out a tune that seems to be searching for a key it can't quite find. You catch a wry smile tugging at your lips. It's the kind of singing that makes even the wind pause baffled. The room is low lit, the lamps casting flickering shadows that dance across the walls in time with the keeper's song. You chuckle under your breath and feel a camaraderie in the shared absurdity of it all. Historians still debate whether the tune actually helped anybody stay awake, or if it was more about breaking the silence that threatened to lull even the most stalwart into dreams. You catch the eye of the elderly keeper, a veteran of many a stormy watch. "Need a caffeine boost, eh?" He joshes, nodding towards the pot. His voice is gruff, with age and salted air. The humor in his eyes is comforting, a wink to the many nights spent chasing away drowsiness with a heady mix of roast and laughter. The wooden boards creak beneath your boots as you step towards the lighthouse tower, the spiral staircase winding upwards like a serpent coiling to strike. Each step echoes softly, accompanied by gusts of wind that sneak through the gaps in the wooden structure, chilling your cheeks and conspiring with the coffee to keep you alert. As you climb, your hand traces a cool, wrought iron railing, imagining the countless hands that have done the same, seeking solace, or perhaps just balance in its solidity. The sea whispers its age-old secrets through the slats, and you fancy that, with a keen ear and a bit of imagination, you might unravel one or two of them. Reaching the top, you emerge in the lantern room. The beacon stands silent, its glass gleaming, waiting for its cue to come ablaze. You can see why some keepers joked about it being the eye of the sea, ever watchful, ever steady. Its presence is reassuring one moment and awe-inspiring the next. You sigh, the cold air mixing with the whirlwind of steam that escapes your lips, and walk over to the windows. Here the vastness of the night embraces you, the sky a magnificent tapestry of stars, some of which might have witnessed these very same routines centuries before. It's nights like these that remind you, says another keeper, jolting you gently out of your reverie. His voice is softer, almost lost in the gentle rumble of the wind outside. Reminds you why we do this, why we stay. You nod, understanding, lingering in the air between you like a shared secret. It's the beauty, the solitude, and yes, maybe even the thrill of the occasional storm that draws you in. Or maybe it's the way the lighthouse serves as a lifeline, its light slicing through darkness and fog, guiding wayward ships and travelers to safety. As you flick the switch to light the beacon, its glow spread slowly spills out into the night, pushing back the shadows and painting the surrounding rocks in amber light. You feel a sense of accomplishment that thrums through you like a soft hum of energy, similar to the one now filling the tower. The night stretches out before you, hours and tasks ahead. But here at this moment, as the beam of light sweeps across the endless waves, it is enough just to breathe in the cool, salt air, to watch the dance of the waves below, and to know that within this lighthouse, within this ritual, lies a history vast and deep. As you step back from the lantern room's windows, the warmth from the light fills the space around you. It's a calming glow, one that seems to whisper promises of safety and guidance. Ensuring the beacon is on course, you return to the small enclave attached to the tower, where another keeper has finally joined in the off-key harmony. Their laughter mingles with the singing. It's a piece of camaraderie that knits you all together as you share tales, some tall enough to rival the lighthouse itself. Every now and then, you take a moment to lean against the railing outside, letting the icy wind nip at your ears. It's a delicate dance, this life balancing between staying awake and the temptation of the alluring warmth inside. But with the bout of fatigue comes a kind of clarity, a quiet understanding of what it means to be a part of an age-old tradition that has seen countless others through similar nights. The night deepens, and with it comes a calm that is almost tangible. The sea, ever constant, provides a backdrop, its rhythm a lullaby. The lighthouse stands firm, and you within it continue your vigil, knowing that even though the winds howl fiercely, there's always comfort in the shared light that guides wayfarers home. You grasp the cold iron of the spiral railing, its chill seeping through your fingertips as you begin your ascent. The tower coils upward in a dizzying spiral, each step echoing underfoot. The dim lantern light casts soft flickering shadows against the stone walls, painting patterns that dance lazily with each draft of sea air that meanders through narrow windows. You've been tasked with a peculiar duty, ascending this ancient tower in the dead of night, your footsteps the only sound that breaks the quiet. Why spiral, you wonder, as you circle upwards again and again, the staircase winding like a serpent? You know these towers were designed not just for their functional height, but for the symbolism of resilience their spiral form, standing out stark against the simplicity of straight lines. They seem to say, here the journey curves, here nothing is straightforward. You chuckle softly at the thought, perhaps a metaphor for your evening shifts, roundabout never ending, like trying to avoid that last slice of cake. Yet as you tread carefully on each aged wooden step, you feel a sense of purpose ripple through the stillness. Each round trip you make is a quest to stay alert, an old keeper's trick to avoid the lures of sleep. You recall the tales shared among those who've watched the night from this perch. Tales of phantom ships and flickering lights on the horizon. Stories as twisted as the stairs you climb. Some historians whisper the tower's spiral design was to minimize wind resistance, easing the burden on those who built these stone beacons. Others argue it was merely a matter of necessity in cramped coastal spaces. You find yourself imagining discussions over mugs of ale, the debates as endless as the spirals themselves, each historian competing to make their point, their opinions twisting around each other like your present path up this tower. The faint sound of seagulls occasionally pierces the gentle hum of the sea, a reminder of dawn waiting somewhere far ahead. These nocturnal vigils aren't new to you. Indeed, it's a kind of sacred ritual one that the keepers of old called a dance with the hours. As the minutes stretch out, you imagine yourself a silent guardian of the lighthouse, a sentinel against the approaching darkness, and mildly irritated that technology hasn't yet caught up with the need to sleep 8 uninterrupted hours. In this quiet solitude, imagination mingles with reality. You think of the keepers before you, their footfalls echoing the same pattern, the rhythm undisturbed through the ages. Were they as watchful as you? Did they cloak themselves against the biting cold, dreaming of their own hearths as the vast sea lay spread before them, dark and inscrutable? Or did the repetitive climb hypnotize their thoughts, each step a mantra? Feeling the ache beginning to settle into your calves, you indulge in a fleeting musings. What if there had been a clever mechanism, some medieval escalator hidden in the masonry? Surely the keepers of old deserved as much comfort enough to make you smile at the absurdity. But alas, today the only automation is your stubborn will compelling you onward. Lost in these thoughts, you inch closer to the summit, where the beacon awaits the lighthouse lens that bathes the coastline in its revolving embrace, a soft glow fighting away the void. You envision the light as a whisper to the waves, a guardian glow assuring sailors that safety lies ashore. As you reach the final step, a brisk gale welcomes you through an open watchroom window, rustling your hair. The salty air invigorates your senses just as your boots touch the platform above. You exhale sharply, a brief moment of satisfaction washing over you as you gaze out over the vast rolling seas. The ocean stretches infinitely, the stars above, mirrored in the undulating midnight waves, an eternal spiral unto itself. For a few moments, you allow yourself to embrace the enormity of it all, the ceaseless churn of water beneath an endless sky, the ancient dance of light and dark tied forever to this tower. The keeper's life, you realize, is a paradox, tethered firmly to the earth, yet so closely aligned with the stars and the sea. Here in the delicate balance of serenity and solitude, history feels alive around you, breathing through the stone and wooden beams. It's as if the tower itself hums with tales, untold secrets kept within its spiraling walls. These whispers, though inaudible, keep you company while you traverse the lonely waits. The tales say that in the darkest hours before dawn, the chirping of invisible crickets is said to carry the memories of the sea, salty and timeless. You wonder if those tales are true, or just another fancy to occupy the mind, a lighthouse keeper's joke perhaps, like the pirate who forgot how to save his treasure on land. As you stretch out your arms to lean against the sturdy ledge, you take in the first hints of azure light beginning to bloom on the horizon. The night symphony quiets, making space for the clamorous chorus of dawn. In these moments, you find the rhythm of the tower has become a part of you. The coils of history, the spiral of stories, the endless dance of night and day. For now, you have this watch to complete a final round to make before you ease back down the spiraling descent. There will be warmth, sleep, and the promise of another journey nestled safely in the familiarity of each step a dance to be resumed as certain as the waves that lap faithfully at the shore. The night is quiet, the kind of silence that allows your thoughts to stretch their limbs and wander freely. You're standing in a dimly lit room somewhere in the middle of a ship, a massive ironclad beast of the sea. The shadows of the brass bolts glint in the lantern light like tiny stars scattered across the walls. It's a funny thought that cleaning these bolts repeatedly might keep the mind equally polished and clear. As your fingers brush over the cool metal, you imagine sailors of old doing just the same. Brass bolts were probably cheaper than therapy. You take a moment to appreciate the dedication, a ritual that keeps boredom and madness at bay. You reflect on how sailors centuries ago would say, "A busy mind keeps the sea's whispers silent." And isn't that just the human condition, seeking order and purpose? Even in the smallest tasks, like polishing circles into metal that gleam with stories of work and dreams. As the ship gently lists you, glance around at your surroundings. The wooden planks underfoot emit a comforting creak with every step. Each footfall a soft reminder of where you are deeply intertwined with the history of the vessel carrying you. It's surprising how these ships were like microcosms of society, each bolt and beam holding its own purpose within the grand design. Some historians still debate whether such massive constructs were ever meant to defy the will of the sea. In a nearby shadowy corner, an old tarpaulin hangs. It smells of salt and time, its presence, a comfort akin to a worn-out quilt from home. An image crosses your mind, a patchwork of sailors' stories sewn into its fabric. You wonder, did they ever truly believe their efforts would ensure safe passage through such unpredictable waters? A gentle breeze through a cracked porthole brings with it the scent of the ocean mingling with the aged wood and metals, a natural perfume unique to these floating worlds. You lean closer to the porthole, inhaling the briny air like a tonic. It makes you smile, realizing that the phrase fresh sea air isn't quite as refreshing as one might think, especially when it's tinged with hints of overcooked cabbage from tonight's dinner. You can almost hear the echo of voices that once called this ship home. Conversations murmured into the night about far-off lands and distant loved ones. Life on deck must have been a series of contradictions, isolation in the vastness of the ocean, yet cramped within the confines of the ship. Imaginations were the only things that roamed free, just like yours now. Outside, the moon casts a silvery sheen across the water, creating a path of light that stretches to the horizon, inviting thoughts to drift with the current. It's in this meditative state that the process of cleaning becomes not just about the physical task, but about maintaining control, an assurance that while chaos reigns outside, clarity exists within. You chuckle softly at the irony, considering that much, like the endlessly polished brass ideas too, require constant refining and reflection. You move to a different part of the room, your steps echoing alongside the drowsy rhythm of the sea. Here, the atmosphere is thick with stories and anticipation. The logs nestled in their rightful places are the chronicles of voyages and adventures. You imagine these journals overflowing with elegant handwriting and cryptic doodles, records of decisions well made, and others perhaps better forgotten, Another sailing tale involves a cabin boy who spent his own nights pressing fear into the paper with the sharp tip of a quill. No doubt he spun narratives from cloud formations during daylight watches. Some say he crafted fantastic tales of sea creatures that would rival any kraken sighting fueling debates over their authenticity. Historians still theorize whether such creatures were myth or misunderstood wonders of the natural world. The ship rocks gently again, and you feel the pull of its steady rhythm, coaxing your body into agreement. You drag your fingers across another bolt, as if committing its curves and intricacies to memory. It's remarkable, really, how such small things play a role in the grand tapestry of maritime history. These bolts are the unsung heroes that bear the weight of dreams, ambitions, and the hopes of those journeying into the unknown. Caught in this quiet ritual, you are not just polishing history, you're witnessing it. You inhale deeply once more, closing your eyes and letting the room fade into the background. The sway of the ship becomes the pulse of your thoughts, each gentle motion drifting you closer to a tranquil sea. Just like the ship carrying you along its endless path, a part of you sails on this serene night, braving an ocean of dreams. The gentle rustling of feathers breaks the serene silence of the night, and you feel a tickling sensation along your arm, as if the very air was brushing past you like an invisible companion. It's a strange sight to witness a seagull rapping its sharp beak against the glass pane as regular as clockwork. You can't help but chuckle softly and shake your head in amazed acknowledgement. Here in the inky darkness that blankets the world, like a comforting quilt, survival takes many curious shapes. You're on an isolated lighthouse island, a solitary beacon, amidst vast maritime stretches where the usual distractions of mainland life don't reach. As you walk across the hardy wooden floorboards, sand creeping along with every step, the historical watchroom greets you warmly. The air is tinged with the salty tang of the sea, and beyond the sturdy glass, the ocean murmurs in its sleep. You can almost hear the echoes of long-forgotten voyages murmuring with it. In this nocturnal landscape, guardians of the lighthouse come up with ingenious methods to stay awake their father's tricks of the trade, wrapped in wisdom as old as the waves themselves. You recall one such keeper, a stout-hearted chap with a disposition as stormy as the gales he weathered. He's the very one who trained the seagull, an unlikely ally in his never-ending battle against the heavy lids of sleep. A whistle of admiration slips from your lips as you marvel at their unusual camaraderie. Good lad, that one, a lantern-jawed sailor would have muttered, nodding appreciatively, a twinkle of mischief dancing in his eyes. You wonder briefly if the seagull ever took time off for personal days, or conspired to enjoy the leftovers from the keeper's table as payment for its services. The thought lingers amusedly as you find your own thoughts straying like sea breezes, playful as they wind through the cordage of your imagination. Another silent companion around these parts is the feline brigade cats that have prowled the same beleaguered paths for centuries, eyes glowing like lanterns cut from the moon. Among them are tales of cats with an uncanny knack for meowing at just the right or wrong hours. To the untrained ear, it's just an annoyance, a disturbance of the midnight calm. But those in the know realize these pets are not mere creatures of habit, but sentinels with instinct honed to sleep-saving perfection. Perhaps they channel some ancient pact between man and beast, a shared legacy handed across the ages. It's said that the cats of yore kept sailors from their final watches, their meows as telling and insistent as any ship's bell. Yet academics debate the veracity of these stories. Was it the cats, or perhaps just the zeitgeist of the seafaring life that shouldered this nocturnal duty? Your fingers brush along the cool metal rungs of the spiral staircase, ascending to the lantern room where those questions have swirled like ghosts for centuries. The lantern room itself is a bastion of meticulously polished glass and burnished brass, every piece a testament to the tireless hands that have toiled here before you. You stand among these instruments of brightness, a sentry poised against the encroaching void. The light spins lazily, bathing the star-specked sky in rhythmic bursts that seem to pulse with calm reassurance. You inhale deeply, the quiet balm of the sea air, refreshing your senses, reminding you that even in a solitude, you're bound in a chain of history. There's a playful dance in the merging of animal allies and human ingenuity, a delicate choreography that has unfolded through the corridors of time. You picture the keeper weary yet steadfast, matching wits with his avian compatriot. It takes a steady hand and a trusting spirit to work harmoniously with nature's sentinels. You find yourself aligning with their rhythms as each peck and plaintive meow stitch together a patchwork of vigilance, a lonesome dance of duty beneath the sentinel flames. With each stride you take, you feel the substance of history pressing against the borders of the present, as though the very air hums with stories undisturbed for years. You smile slightly at the eccentric dance of necessity and imagination that these keepers etched into the maritime tapestry. Theirs is a legacy woven from seafoam and silent watches, set against the ever-turning backdrop of time. Settling into the plush comfort of a chair that has welcomed many a weary keeper before you, you allow your muscles to unwind slowly, reluctantly, yielding to the softness of your surroundings. As you sit in quiet reflection, the timeless choreography of the lighthouse continues its dance unabated. Through the window waves, whisper secrets to the shore, while up above the moon stands as a silent custodian of dreams yet to be dreamed. Here, wrapped in the embrace of ocean breezes, in the comfort of a reliable light, you feel a peaceful sensation as vast as the starry night that stretches above. The world holds its breath, poised for whatever story will next emerge from the depths, and you find solace in the thought that no dream ever truly dies. It merely waits patient as the tide to be seen once more. And so, with a heart buoyed by these tranquil truths, you close your eyes, surrendering your senses to the watchful lullaby of the sea. The room is dim, filled with the soft rhythmic ticking of an old clock, echoing the gentle sway of the world as it prepares for nightly slumber. You're nestled comfortably in your favorite chair, a patchwork throw draped over your knees as you find yourself drawn into the story unfolding within your mind. The sea air, cool and salted, whispers against your cheek as you stand once more atop the jagged cliffs that have become so familiar. A lighthouse looms ahead, its tall frame silhouetted against a gentle dusk. Its glassy eye, ever watchful, sweeps a reassuring beam across the vast open waters, below a steadfast guardian against the dark and the unknown. You step inside. The wooden door creaks softly in greeting, a sound worn smooth by countless entrances and exits over the years. There's a simplicity to this place that you find comforting, no more complicated than it needs to be. Each shoelace skims the worn floorboards as you begin the spiraling ascent to the top. Imagine the effort that went into each turn of your climb, the centuries-old stairwell snugly circling upward. You can almost hear the murmur of history's past voices intertwined, like the strands of a rope resilient and unbroken. The air is thick with stories, waiting for listeners patient enough to hear them. Reaching the summit, you enter the lantern room. It's a space that feels closer to the sky than to the earth. Here, the great lens dominates its presence, a testament to engineering marvel. As you stand before it, just imagine how many others have been enveloped in the same glow, their thoughts marinating in the soft, rotating light. It's strangely easy to see how one could become captivated enough to whisper to it, "Please," you'd say, "just keep shining." And it's not just the practicality of navigating treacherous waters without mishap. No, it's more than that. It's the certainty of light in the darkness, the steadfast pulse of hope when everything else falters. Your fingers brush the railing as you gaze out across the horizon. The ocean stretches endlessly, a vast stage of inky black, punctuated by the gentle foam caps that sparkle under the lighthouse's beam. Historians still debate whether the first lighting truly marked a more civilized world or merely brought new levels of complexity to human endeavors. Makes you ponder, doesn't it? Did ancient lighthouse keepers ever question the endless waves and sky? Or perhaps in their solitude, they cherish the quiet company of constellations and tides? A subtle wind rustles at your collar, reminding you of the colder nights when the stone and steel around you hold little warmth. It's nights like this, clear, with the chill just beginning to bite, that fatigue can make one feel a bond with this miraculous behemoth. Strange how often we attribute lifelike qualities to inanimate objects, a quirk of the human condition perhaps, or simply our way of making the world feel a little less indifferent. Don't go out. You might murmur a prayer more than a command. The lantern's steadfastness becomes a companion, its brilliant cycle, a reassurance that you're never truly alone. One can acknowledge every mechanical flaw and human error, and yet still place their trust in this timeless sentinel. You recline carefully, feeling the solid support of the room around you. Beneath your eyelids, the world turns over slowly. You see the unending loop of light fanning out into the abyss, and within it a spark of humor flickers. It amuses you to recall that even Julius Caesar reportedly had bonfires lit along the coast, a sort of proto-lighthouse scheme. Imagine the struggles of the Roman engineers, perhaps shaking their heads at rogue winds or creeping tides, the original keepers of the flames, engaged in eternal conversation with the elements, not so different, after all, from the likes of you. Your smile lingers at the thought how we've always reached for light, striving to lift the veil of night. Part of you wonders silently if light itself holds fragments of dreams dispersing them into the waking world like fireflies into a summer eve. Around you, the lantern hums in its rotations, a steady lullaby in the age-old rhythm of watchfulness. You exhale, your breath softening in the air as the gentle glow continues weaving its path, touching everything and nothing. It's a litany, as calming as the first yawn of dawn. And so you find yourself listening your own breath dancing in time with the light's own song. In this quietude, a truth settles over you like a silken fog, warm, real, and altogether comforting. You realize tonight, just like endless keepers before you, that this light, this moment, and these humble whispers form a timeless tapestry, forever woven by fleeting lives beneath the eternal dance of stars. Pages and pages pour out from beneath your pen, each letter dancing with the quiet urgency of words that demand to be written. You sit here, a mere speck, in the grand spinning wheel of time, surrounded by the musty scent of old wood and cooler, salty air that drifts in from the sea. You're engrossed in crafting your thoughts, your fingers barely leaving the coarse parchment. You find yourself writing to old friends whose eyes will never again light up with recognition, to family members whose voices now echo only in your memories. Sometimes the letters are to the sea itself, a companion with its ebbs and flows as familiar as your own breath. These letters, meant to be capsules of your thoughts and feelings, find their way into drawers unread like deep ocean currents, sweeping messages along the sandy seabed. You suspect they hold more truth than you're ready to admit. You're seated in a small dim room somewhere within an old coastal manor. A single lamp flickers, casting elongated shadows that play tricks on your weary eyes. The room is cluttered in the manner of a mind never, idle books stacked high and curios that beg inspection under a layer of dust. Amongst this organized chaos, there's something soothing about the rhythm of writing, the soft scratch of the quill, anchoring you in the present moment. But there's always a lingering question: what drives you to write these letters? Perhaps it's the ceaseless march of time that you wish to capture, like how some people frantically bottle up sand before it slips through their fingers. Maybe you believe it's your duty to tether these pieces of your soul to paper, hoping they might outlast you, whispering your truths to an indifferent future. Was it like this for others throughout history? You consider the roll call of famous letter writers. Marcus Aurelius, perhaps penning his thoughtful meditations to friends he trusted to understand his stoic heart. His letters are historical records now. And did Napoleon really pause in the middle of a battlefield to write to Josephine his heart's longing, spilling out amidst orders of cannon fire and strategy? You're skeptical whether Josephine read all his words or whether they were tucked away unread in a royal drawer. You stare at the horizon, where the sea kisses the sky, and wonder when letters evolved from intimate conversations to silent witnesses to one's solitude. The love letters of John Keats come to mind. Oh, you muse historians still debate whether Fanny Brawne ever read all those passionate declarations of love scattered across the pages. What truth does his heart keep yearning and unfulfilled, locked away in an unread letter? You smile to yourself, wondering if unwritten letters were the 18th century equivalent of an unopened email, a thought which results in a soft chuckle escaping your lips. More than once you've practiced your signature with significant flair at the bottom of such letters, just for the fun of it. Imagining your flourish might stand the test of time, indelibly etched in the paper, sometimes with the jest made only to thin air. You wonder if the sea might talk back its waves, carrying your written words, unread by the world, but deciphered by the ocean's gentle embrace. It's a comforting thought, or curious at least. The desk groans as you lean back, acknowledging perhaps what's most remarkable about these letters isn't their content, but their form, every page, a snapshot of a precise moment in time, frozen in sentences and ink stains. Just like the family heirloom watch on your wrist. Its rhythmic ticking, a reminder of time's inexorable tide, sweeping everything along with it, letters included. In your pocket, you keep a small folded paper, a sketch done by the seaside in happier days. It captures a laughing moment where the waves tickled the soles of your feet. You lean forward, nose almost touching the paper, imagining you hear the echoes of those waves and the memories preserved in saltwater air. This ritual anchors you, grounding you in a tangible reality when thoughts flutter like unbridled sails caught in a storm. You open another drawer, pull out a half-written letter and brush your fingers over the words, tracing each loop and line. Will these words ever be read, understood, cherished? Or will they slip silently into the annals of forgotten echoes, fretting mere figments of a dreamland like ink, running in the rain? Your vision blurs slightly, not fully of exhaustion, but of emotions intertwined with nostalgia. A soft, whimsical regret hangs about the pages like a specter, but you shoo it aside, grappling with present inspiration. After all, isn't every letter a chance to bridge space and hold conversations across time? Even if no human eye ever graces the words, who's to say the act itself isn't of value? A question historians still ponder forever, caught in their eternal speculation. A soft rustle in the still room catches your attention, drawing you away from introspection. You realize it's just a gentle breeze, nudging the aged curtains, wisps of memories you didn't know you were holding, coaxing you back into the realm of touchable, breathable realities. With a sigh thick as the ocean fog creeping in your hand, returns to the paper. Another word, another flick of your wrist, each letter, a testament, each sentence a breath, in the anchoring act of existence. In this space between thought and expression, you catch the fleeting sense that perhaps nothing is ever truly unread, not in the realm of emotions carried on the wings of time. And if not now, then when they're ready, those hands of the future might graze upon these whispered dreams, crafting their own stories and splicing time through ink. The ancient lighthouse stands alone. On the rocky outcrop, its silhouette etched against the night sky. As you step closer, the salty breeze tugs at your clothes, whispering secrets of the sea. The division between land and water blurs, just like your thoughts that mingle with the rhythmic crash of waves below. As you place a hand on the moss-covered stones, you feel the faint tremor through your fingertips, centuries of wind and watchfulness bound into each creaking timber and rusty bolt of the lighthouse. A low groan emanates from the structure, as if the lighthouse itself is deciding whether to let you in on its age-old mysteries. You're not entirely convinced that the sound is merely wood settling. After all, when the fog rolls in, thick as porridge, some say the air carries voices, distant echoes from long-lost ships. It's easy to imagine how fear and tales wove together in such isolated places, leaving lighthouse keepers peering into the mist, swearing they heard spectral whispers, but wide awake nonetheless. You chuckle lightly, wondering if they actually heard anything, or simply needed a good night's sleep. As you stand there, you can't help but let your mind wander to the past. Did these keepers spend their nights like this, questioning what was real and what was merely the wind's mischief? Each movement of the gusts can almost sound like a word, a syllable carried off towards the shadows at the horizon. Stepping inside the door groans in protest, and a rush of warmer air hits your face. It's surprisingly cozy inside, with the scent of old leather and musty canvas filling the space. You imagine the keepers once huddled here, their woolen sweaters pulled tight against the chill, maybe chatting about heroic rescues or foolish sailors. They probably had no choice but to rely on such stories. Who else was there to talk to during those long, fog-drenched nights? A faded map on the wall catches your eye, its surface a patchwork quilt of routes and red ink warnings. You trace your finger along the coastlines, etched in browning paper, feeling a strange kinship with those who once plotted courses by dim lamplight. Historians still debate, you muse to yourself, whether these maps were more useful or more confounding. With each corner explored, you hope not to encounter any mysterious X's marking spots. Turning your attention to the spiral staircase that curls upwards, you notice every step creaks ominously, like an old sailor's complaint. A giggle escapes you. At the thought of being subtle here, your noisy footsteps would surely betray your presence. You grip the railing and begin to climb your muscles, adjusting to the rhythm of the narrow steps. As you ascend, the soft light from the beacon room above spills into the stairwell, guiding you like a beacon to safety. The warmth it promises seems enticing compared to the cold mysteries left behind. Reaching the top, you enter a room filled with glass and shadows. The lens of the lighthouse gleams with a kaleidoscope of reflections, colors shifting gently as the mighty light sweeps across the invisible sailor's path. You stand there mesmerized by its slow dance, thinking, this must be what comfort felt like in their solitude-filled lives. Their job was essential. A single light might mean the difference between safety and disaster, yet they often went unnoticed by those who passed by, avoiding the rocks thanks to their diligence. You pause, allowing respect to fill the space where humor had lightly tiptoed a moment before. A gentle tapping breaks your reverie. You realize it's just a tiny moth, drawn to the light, bumping repeatedly into the glass, not quite understanding how close, yet so far it is. It's as if the moth's determination mirrors that of the lighthouse keepers. They stayed focused, never faltering in their duty, ensuring each traveler found their way home. Letting out a deep breath, you feel the calm of the room wrapping around you like a reassuring embrace. You close your eyes for a second, allowing the combination of soft light and rhythmic sounds to soothe any unease whispered by the fog outside. Opening them again, you glance at the old logbook still resting atop a simple wooden desk. The name of each ship safely navigated brings a sense of pride, shared across time's distance. You imagine the keeper sitting at that very desk, perhaps scribbling a new entry or sketching the view that stretched endlessly before him. Each ink stroke would anchor another night in the vast sea of memories, a tribute to every vessel steered away from hidden dangers. At times like these, it's no wonder their thoughts drifted to past days when today's mysteries would become tomorrow's tales. You can't help but feel that same pull of wondering. Were spirits of ancient ships sailing by unnoticed, but for a faint voice weaving through the fog? Or was it simply wind and wood creaking in the old lighthouse guiding the sleepless? Even as you stand there now, a part of you feels as though you've inherited this watch eyes, scanning the coast, as though you might see a phantom ship flash briefly in the light's glow. The familiar creak of wood, the distant crash of waves, the gentle hum of the beacon's light, all wrap you in their timeliness. This is the heart of the lighthouse, an ever watchful guardian, forever keeping the fog-bound narratives alive with each soft, persistent revolution. Some keepers baked at 2 a.m. rye, oat, or seed loaves just to feel warmth and measure something other than time. The small stone kitchen is cool, yet a comforting aroma wraps around you like a soft woolen blanket. The fire within the belly of the brick oven crackles gently, casting a golden glow that flickers across the rough-hewn walls. Iron pots hang from hooks, clinking softly like musical whispers with each small draft through the open window. You knead the dough with a rhythmic firmness, each push and fold grounding you in the present. It's a curious thing. Sometimes you wonder if this simple act has more meaning than just preparing bread. As your hands sink into the dough, you start to think about the bakers of the medieval world who, much like yourself, sought solace and stability in these quiet hours. Perhaps you share some unspoken connection across centuries with them. The historical fact often debated by scholars is whether medieval bakers had any time to dream between their heavy schedules. Some say their lives were nothing but a cycle of work and sleep, yet you hear an old story from a fellow keeper. They used to tell tales to their breads. They say, smiling mysteriously over their own rising dough, filling the loaves with dreams like you wouldn't believe. A light joke crosses your mind. Maybe that's why some breads came out so tough, too stuffed with imaginary narratives to properly rise. With a soft chuckle, you reach for the small pot of rye grains, feeling the cool texture beneath your fingers as you sprinkle hand-measured amounts into the mix. The ancient grains bounce and scatter before being enveloped by the dough, joining the growing, living creation. Suddenly the thought strikes you, what if there's more to this night baking ritual than mere warmth and nourishment? In these ancient walls, perhaps there's something magical about the energy here at 2 a.m., a time betwixt this world and the next, when everything slows to a soft, steady pulse. You find yourself genuinely wondering why historians aren't spending more time investigating these mysteries. Instead of reviewing crumbling texts, Maybe they should occasionally need some dough just to see what they might unfold. As part of your routine, you stir the oats and seeds into the mix, the texture growing richer and more complex beneath your hands. Each varied loaf tells its story, sometimes a sweet suggestion of honey from the rye, or a nutty whisper from the seeds. It's like weaving a tapestry rich with threads of aroma and taste, intricately tied to the past. The candlelight flickers as a draft stirs the room again, lifting the tendrils of your hair. You pause for a moment, looking out the window. The world beyond is a velvet night brushed with distant stars. Does each one have a baker dreaming beneath it with hands similarly dusted in flour? The warmth spreads slowly, heating the chill stone floor underfoot. You lean back, feeling the cool wall support you, a steadfast companion during these still, solitary nights. It's peaceful, and that's a fact the greatest historians might not capture. Perhaps they too should recall those quiet moments when they finally sit down after a long day, a mug of ale in hand, contemplating how the smallest grains of wheat shape empires and revolutions alike. In this kitchen, the lines blur between the past and present, between necessity and leisure. A soft voice, perhaps, your own quiet musings aloud, reverberates gently. Bread teaches patience more reliable than any ancient sundial. You're convinced through some slyly academic uncertainty that early bakers kept time not with clocks, but with the rise and warmth of each dough they made. With the last of the bread comfortably resting under a cloth, a final thought winds around you, like the tendrils of steam rising from the oven-cooked loaves. How much of history has been written in the simple, unrecorded acts, like these small hours of baking? You find humor in the thought. Maybe your hobby reflects a timeless law, the true keeper's timepiece. The oven continues to hum, keeping company with the slow beats of your heart. It's funny how you can lose track of time here, and perhaps that's all right. For these moments are woven into history in ways the grandest events never manage. You remember what a fellow keeper murmured once: baking at dawn's first blush speaks to the soul. The dough, now full of life, rests gently. You realize that while time may have slipped seamlessly past, there's no real rush to chase it. In some corner of the world, a baker likely smiles with you now, across centuries, baking under a starlit sky, paired with snug camaraderie, formed in cherished kitchens over soft, warm bread. For now the cycle continues, expanding like a breath, tangible and real. As your own breathing softens, you listen closely, perhaps hearing whispers of tales exchanged upon night's canvas. Your thoughts drift as the oven cools to embers, timeless as the universal attraction of being a keeper of simple, nourishing loaves beneath an ancient and vast sky. They could tell which captain passed just by the sway and rhythm of a lantern glow, each pattern lighted like a sleepy Morse code. You stand on the damp cobblestones of a bustling port town, the salty sea air forever entwined with the scent of faraway lands. Lanterns bob in the distance, each gently swaying in distinct rhythms. You can't help but wonder if the captains orchestrate these glows to signal secretly. Maybe it's just a tradition, like announcing your presence with a flamboyant wink Historians, bless their earnest hearts, still debate whether this was intentional or just the ocean playing tricks with shadows. As you walk along the crowded docks, you notice how, even amid the chaos, there's a serenity in the rhythm of the waves and the slow sway of the boats. Small gestures, sailors tying knots, deftly traders haggling with exaggerated gall, draw you further into this living tapestry. A melodic chorus of foreign tongues floats through the night air, blending into a harmony of unspoken stories. Nearby, an old man sits on a barrel, his weathered fingers tracing patterns in the mist with a thin reed. His face is a map of continents, etched by time and adventures, whispered in the silent language of the sea. You can't resist stopping to ask about the lanterns, the unique light patterns so hypnotizing. He chuckles softly, a sound that feels like crackling leaves underfoot. Ah, lad, he begins, those lights speak better than any shout across the water. They tell stories and greet friends. And sometimes he leans in for effect, they tell secrets. A ship's bell tolls in the distance, and the old man shifts as if to stand, but then settles back, deciding to remain anchored for a while longer. Scuttlebutt says Captain Hawkins could chart a course to the New World just on reflections alone. You sense a twinkle in his eye, buoyed by the marine myth drifting into your own imagination. The notion of navigating vast waters with naught but the signals of lanterns seems as much an art as a science. You wonder if these captains learned their craft from the stars or secrets whispered by the sea itself. Which brings you to another musing. Did they ever wonder why the stars, so constant, allowed themselves this mystery? Another lantern swings by, more frenetic than the former, suggesting perhaps someone late to a supper or an overly enthusiastic gull. You suppress a smile at the fanciful thought, exhaling as tension unwinds from your shoulders. Shifting your focus, you ponder the sheer skill it must take to lead a ship through such darkness with just light as your guide. Not unlike finding your way home by the glow of a distant window, one more luminous than the rest. As your fingers trail along the damp wood of the dock's edge, you catch yourself questioning whether those aboard ever sleep, knowing their bioluminescent guides are mere dances of flame and sea. You turn your thoughts once more to the cleverness of these captains and their crafts, and as if on cue, a low murmur catches your ear. Two sailors exchange words under their breath, deciding that perhaps today the best way to negotiate prices on tea or spices is by the strength of their lantern signaling. It's all about who blinks first in the negotiations, isn't it? While the rhythmic bobbing of lanterns continues, you allow yourself to drift, just slightly, the gentle lapping of waves, offering a lullaby sung for centuries by these maritime poets. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a whisper wonders what stories will these lights tell tomorrow, and who will dare speak them aloud. As you roll out a crinkled scroll, its edges curling rebelliously, you find yourself seated in a wooden chair aboard a ship that sways gently beneath you. The ocean sighs outside evening waves, casting reflections across a dimly lit cabin. Candles flicker in anticipation of the night's vigil. It's not easy being one of the crew on this late night watch, trying to resist the lull of the sea's whispers. To avoid nodding off, some have taken to drawing, not the portraiture of a modern artist, but charts maps of exploration and the ominous patterns of approaching storms. The wood beneath your hands is smooth and worn from the grasp of many who came before you. Your fingers absently trace the lines etched deep into its surface, wondering if these grooves still bear the brine of past voyages. Nearby, an elderly sailor hunches over his parchment. In the pale glow, his face resembles the creased paper he draws upon a map of lifelines and quests, migration paths, as permanent as the ink that stains his fingers. He glances up, catching you watching him. They say we chart our own destiny, he murmurs, his accent as thick as the salt air. You chuckle, imagining how many charts he might have abandoned in stormy seas. You'd think they might have invented an easier way to stay awake. Besides drawing on history, you reply, gesturing to his work. Historians still debate whether these sea charts were accurate maps or more philosophical musings of endless wanderers. Yet here you are, staring at their artistry bold strokes that narrate tales of storms relentless as time itself, and voyages that seemed less like routes and more like a quest for something elusive, perhaps even immortality. The ship's dim lamp swings softly an anchor for thoughts adrift. In keeping with tradition, tonight's task is to record the night's watch. Above you, the deck creaks, a symphony of groaning wood and sighing ropes. Through the open porthole, the stars scatter across a velvet sky. Eternal reminders that even the vast ocean is just a tiny drop in the universe. You wonder with a smirk if they too are a captain's failed attempt to map his wayward courses. Care to share a story? While we wait for the dawn, the sailor beside you asks unexpectedly. His voice is like a hushed echo of forgotten songs. You consider his question, leaning back the chair, complaining loudly under your weight. Your mind sifts through memory's treasures you keep hidden, like rum stashed by sailors below deck. As time stretches lazily forward, a vivid image from an old tale emerges, a narrative painted by the winds of oral tradition. You recount the story of Admiral Zheng He, the famed Chinese explorer who captained vast fleets across the Indian Ocean. It is said his ships were vast floating cities complete with gardens and animals. One unusual detail stands out, legend has it. When distressed, his fleet was brightened by releasing birds to signal a return to safety. On cue, you both glance at the porthole, almost expecting a bird to flutter in carrying a whisper of adventure from centuries past. Your companion raises an eyebrow, amused. Bet he didn't have to draw his own storms, he quips, nodding towards the sketching sailors around you bent over their makeshift tables. You chuckle softly, picturing Zheng He grandly directing with a flourish of his ink-free hand. Silence envelopes the cabin once more, save for the hushed scratching of quill on parchment. The sailors are steady in their concentration, a steady rhythm, akin to that of the waves against the ship's hull. You look down at your own paper, the pulsing candle flame, casting flickering shadows across half-finished sketches of cloud formations. Each line drawn is another heartbeat against weariness, etched hopes of safer shores ahead. The minutes slip by, fading into hours. When fatigue settles, a sailor occasionally pauses to stretch, stifling a yawn behind his traveling hand. Sleep's call goes unheeded as focus returns resolutely to chart's every measure, every deliberate dot and line, guided more by instinct than by any formal navigation chart found on land today. There's a comfort in this silent communion, you all aware of the necessity of your task to mark each tempestuous shift of the restless tide to bring order to what can never fully be tamed. It's strange you think how man seeks to claim mastery over the elements by merely scribbling their shapes on paper. As the night progresses, the cabin's stillness becomes almost surreal. You could almost hear the growing serenity, a spate of unusual quiet before the morning watch changes places. You're acutely aware of the changing light outside, the moon inching higher, casting its chill gaze through the window. Yet your kindred companions draw on creating an unbroken chain linking you with the past. A sense of connection, a continuum stretching back through eons of explorers and their endless horizons. The sound of the sea whispering secrets through the hull seems almost like language, now one your tired mind longingly tries to interpret. Could it be the code to the stars, another celestial chart, just like the one Jung He believed in? Time's nearly up, your sailor friend notes, voice breaking the spell. Sunrise will change the story. You nod, acknowledging the inevitable end to this vigil. Yet there's solace in knowing another will replace it tomorrow night, weaving new tales beneath the same starlit sky. As the rhythmic tug of exhaustion starts to feel welcome, the promise of rest aligns with the steady hand of the dawn's approach. You set down your quill, allowing your thoughts to sweep over the cabin one last time. There's a humble gratitude for having shared in this quietude, this human inclination to preserve what's impossible to hold, certainly more comforting than staring into the abyss of the unknown. With a deep calming sigh, your eyes begin to flutter. The gentle sway of the ship now lulls you into a peaceful embrace. Tonight's echoes drift into dreams of drawings animated by your mind dancing on fingertip winds. Whatever the horizon brings tomorrow, the sea will offer its eternal stories again. As you close your eyes, the cabin's gentle heart beats on the sound of drawn lines, soothing a lullaby older than time itself. Part of you wonders if this was more a ceremony than an activity. The world around you seems to slow, quieted by the soft, muffling presence of the mist. You find comfort in the rhythms and rituals people have adopted in this fog-laden realm, where the air itself seemed to cradle the words one would read. As you linger with the fog, you think about how stories have been treasures through the ages. Once upon a time, a book was regarded with an almost reverent caution by its keeper, who might ration pages for each day's clarity, a practice you find both fascinating and mildly absurd. To savor each word under the oppressive skies like one might savor the last crumbs of a favorite treat. You imagine how some readers might hold back the end of a chapter until the fog thickened, the perfect excuse to pause and drown the senses in suspense. And then there were the purists, those who preferred to consume every morsel of a book at once, and then return, again and again retracing familiar paths, like an old memory looped in time. How many times did they say they've read that book? You muse. 5 times, 10, 20. You can't help but chuckle, realizing it's akin to listening to your favorite song on repeat, both comforting and somehow tiresome. But perhaps there's a certain magic in visiting the same words, the same scenes, allowing them to unfold differently with each visit. Feeling the dampness of the air cling to your skin, a realization settles in this age, where books are few and sacred has created its guardians. People who hold books as treasures, keepers of knowledge and tales, responsible for preserving wisdom through the ages. Does this mean librarians have secret superpowers in this world? Maybe they do. Or at the very least, a really impressive frown when someone mishandles a page. You think back to a time when books were more wild, running freely through minds without restraint. It seems like a dream now here amidst the fog, where these precious tomes are doled out sparingly, and the idea of the bookshelf holds an almost mythical status. But you mustn't despair. Instead, there's a joy in the ritual, in the moment of opening a cover, and being enveloped in the embrace of a narrative. You feel this as surely as you feel the cool mist weaving silently through the leaves with you. This landscape rich with the presence of stories past, present, and future is timeless. It breathes life not only into the tales contained within musty pages, but also into the inhabitants who orbit around these written treasures. As your footfalls shuffle on, carried off by the dreams tied to their words, you can't help pondering what characters are just as alive in the minds of others as they are on parchment. Over the gentle rustle of leaves and fog, muting every sound but your thoughts, you can almost hear a whisper. How many people through the ages have felt this same pull to stories? It's as if you stand among ghosts of readers past, each holding a book close like an old friend. Historians still debate whether this reverence for the written word was born of scarcity or necessity, but the feeling remains unchanged, unbroken, like undisturbed soil. And as the fog curls around you, you embrace the truth that in this place books are a form of quiet resistance against the relentless march of time. They are the keepers of history, the narrators of the past, shaping shadows and whispers into the melodies that guide you through the haze. Even if you sometimes scoff at the idea of rationing chapters like mere loaves of bread during a long winter's night, deep down inside, you realize it's worth giving in to this quiet communion meant to be treasured. This thought reminds you of a historical detail that monastic scribes of old, who by candles' flicker painstakingly copied texts by hand, preserving the knowledge of ancient civilizations. Talk about job security, you joke to yourself, imagining the tranquil silence of vast stone halls, filled with the scratch of quill pens. But their dedication was like that of the keepers today, striving to ensure that knowledge was never lost to anchor the present to the past. You adjust your pace ears, pricking to the symphony of distant echoing voices, carried by the gentle wind that tugs at your coattails. Within those voices lie tales of adventure, sorrow, and joy. This communion with stories both enthralls and humbles you, leaving an indelible print upon this peaceful, foggy stretch of time. And as your footfalls recede into the mist, you find a curious comfort in the roles books have played throughout history. From their revered status as bound treasures to their current home, amid the premise of cherished rarity, each page turned seems to drum the quiet beating pulse of this world slowly into your senses. the intricate dance of fog story and reality wraps itself around you like a gentle cocoon. Wouldn't it be an odd twist if a hero were waiting for yet another inching page turn to continue their story, held ransom by the keepers, who dole out story like morsels of sweet respite? But then again, one can only imagine the power of longing for what's just outside, the veil of mist, a lesson in patience for those you'd least expect to brave its charm. Who knew you could want to read more patiently in such times as these? Between 2 and 4 a.m. is often the time when the world holds its breath. Moonlight slips through ancient shutters, casting soft patterns on the cold stone floor. This is when you find yourself alone in a dimly lit candle shop in 17th century colonial America. The air is thick with the scent of beeswax, and the gentle flickering of flames dances on the edge of oblivion. You wonder how anyone ever managed to get anything done before electricity. That quiet hum of modern life you're used to. It's replaced by the creak of wood and the occasional crackle of a wick burning too quickly. You're here on a mission, but curiosity has its way of pulling you off the path. Amongst the dipping vats and wooden molds, woven baskets hold countless tallow candles. The shop is alive with the ghost of stories, every flicker a whisper reminding you that each candle once guided hands in writing, stitching, or healing. For a brief moment, you recall that colonial candles weren't just decoration. They were lifesavers in long, dark winters, where each flame was a small sun keeping the cold at bay. As you gingerly walk around, avoiding an accidental spill of hot wax, your fingers dance over a book of receipts. Yes, the original type of recipe books. The pages are filled with swirling handwriting transactions, dated with meticulous though often smudged ink. One entry catches your eye, Madame Tyler's purchase of 10 pounds of fine wax, a luxury not everyone could afford. You picture Madame Tyler perhaps setting the perfect ambiance for a refined evening, or maybe bribing her way into someone's good graces with her display of lavish light. With a small sigh, you imagine the steady hand it took to dip those candles repetitively, plunging the wicks into hot wax time after time, a task for only the most patient soul. Maybe that's why they call this hour the danger zone, when hands slipped and minds wandered. You must admit a midnight snack would definitely be more alluring than repetitive candle making. Down one particularly narrow corridor of the shop, there's a table laden with failed attempts, let's call them abstract candles. Some historians debate whether these early entrepreneurs discovered new shapes by accident or boredom. The blobby candle protesting all recognized geometry certainly suggests the latter. You chuckle quietly to yourself, imagining the candle maker's face red with frustration as they regarded their misshaped masterpiece. In a corner beneath a window, steamed with night mist, sits an old rocking chair. You nestle in, feeling the worn wood greet your back with familiarity. Your eyes draw upwards to the rafters, from which a dusty spider's web trembles gently, whispering secrets of time past. This hour, the danger zone, is where time feels both expansive and fleeting. Fingers are tempted to linger longer in a slow river of wax, while minds drift to dreams of future possibilities illuminated by the smallest flicker of hope. In this stillness, you remember hearing tales of intrepid colonists navigating by candlelight, those wrapped in heavy cloaks crossing moonlit fields that lay powdered with frost, following glowing paths forged by the diligent hands of crafters like these. You nod to yourself knowingly. Yes, this solitude isn't for everyone, but it's a peculiar comfort when the rest of the world feels distant. Outside, a soft rustle draws your attention. Through the warped glass, the silhouettes of owls glide their haunting calls weaving through the air. You'll never understand how such creatures find their way in the dark, especially when you can't even find your socks in the morning without stubbing a toe. As the shop grows cooler, your gaze returns to the warmth emanating from a collection of lit tapers, gently swaying in their tin holders. Each wick a vigilant sentinel keeping the shadows at bay. Maybe you think if you lean back and close your eyes, you might drift on this shallow sea of light and let the waxy lullaby guide you into the comforting arms of dreams. But before you do, another thought tugs at your mind. It's the knowledge that no matter how dark the hour, the first hint of dawn always whispers promises of light. You smile with closed eyes, knowing this night journey guided by the soft glow of candle flames is only just beginning. They wrote what they saw, wind, direction, wave, height, gulls, but also how many coughs they counted or how long their shadow felt. You stand on the deck of a creaking ship, its wooden planks swaying beneath your feet as the sea's constant rhythm rocks you side to side. The salt spray occasionally kisses your cheeks, cool and refreshing in the breeze that dances past, carrying the scent of distant lands yet unseen. To your left, the sun hangs low in the sky, casting long fingers of shadow across the rolling waves, your own silhouette, a ghost dancing along the ship's weathered boards. Above you, the sails billow out like the wings of some ancient bird, and the wind's direction seems to dictate the very course of your thoughts. You note this in the worn leather notebook you carry, where pages are filled with detailed observations. The wind has shifted slightly to the west, southwest, nudging you ever so gently along the path of discovery, much to the delight of the navigator. As you transcribe the mundane into history, your pen pauses on the page, contemplating the commonplace miracle that is your shadow, aligning so perfectly with the ship's rigging. The kind of alignment you imagine only occurs when the universe is trying to tell you something or when you haven't had enough sleep. No one ever said maritime exploration was cushy work. Amidst the sounds of the sea and the creaks of the ship's hull, you find yourself jotting down the number of times you've heard the first mate cough this morning. A game you play to amuse yourself on these long stretches of oceanic monotony. 24 so far. You hope he's not coming down with something more than cabin fever. You wonder if chronicling such trifles might someday seem absurd to historian scholars peering back through time to find significance in the ordinary, or perhaps they might just find it refreshing, a glimpse of humanity on the open sea when history feels otherwise sterile. A lone gull wheels overhead its call, sharp against the ocean's melodic churn. You watch it with an amused smirk, Raven-haired explorers are not supposed to be concerned with seafaring birds, unless, of course, they're stealing your hard-won lunch. Yet this one follows at a distance, perhaps, as curious about your journey as you are about its aerodynamic grace. That bird's a brave one, comments Jonas, the ship's experienced yet notably seasick cartographer, emerging from below deck with a grimace suitable for any seafaring adventure novel. Or perhaps it's just got a taste for sardines. You'd know all about that, wouldn't you? You quip lightly, recalling the excessive amount of sardines Jonas attempted to barter back at the last port. Perhaps a sardine smuggling operation would have been more lucrative than mapping the high seas. As Jonas mutters something about never living down the fishy fiasco, you reflect on the odd camaraderie that arises from such voyages where shared laughs and petty grievances form the threads of friendship. Historians still debate whether these friendships were built more on mutual respect or mutual boredom. But in the moment, it feels as though they are tied together with the steadfastness of a sailor's knot. Your eyes drift back to your notes-inked words that capture the day's essence, as if trapping time in amber. Each entry seems to hold a fragment of your soul, your experiences caught forever in the delicate web of your script. You jot down another observation: the waves cresting at 3 feet today, swirling with an iridescent sheen under the crystalline sunlight. You pause to stretch, breathing in the salt, heavy air, letting it fill your lungs with a clean vigor that speaks of adventure. The horizon stretches out an unbroken line that calls to something deep within you, a siren's song promising not disaster. You're fairly sure a tale waiting to be written. Yet, as always, the thought lingers at the edge of your mind, a shadow of reality occasionally tugging at your imagination's hem. The relentless pace of the sea, its vastness both isolating and invigorating, whispered doubts. If perhaps you've embarked on an endless quest, like some ancient mariner doomed to wander until meeting the edge of the world, should such a thing exist, despite every lesson in celestial navigation claiming otherwise. As the day edges toward dusk, you find comfort in the knowledge that perhaps it isn't finding the destination that matters, but the journey itself, much like the letters you carefully inscribe in your notebook. Though their significance is yet to be discovered, one day they might serve as a lighthouse in history's fog, or simply amuse observers with your counting coughs and shadows. For now you remain a traveler of time and tides, letting the sea cradle your thoughts, for what better lullaby is there than the whispered secrets of the ocean itself? In the dim glow of an oil lamp, you sit on a weathered wooden stool, the rough seat uncomfortable but familiar. Weeks have passed since you and your partner arrived at this remote lighthouse, perched on the edge of the craggy coastline, like a quiet sentinel against the endless stretch of sea. Each day blurs into the next with only the rhythmic sweep of the lighthouse beam marking the passage of time. Tonight it's your partner's turn to climb the spiraling staircase, the heavy thud of his boots echoing against the stone walls. You remain below eyes, tracing the flickering shadows as they dance across the room. There's a peculiar silence that settles around you, an unspoken agreement shared by keepers who have rotated the same duties day in and day out. It's almost like an old, gentle argument of who would tend to the light, each of you hoping for the tougher shifts to pass quickly. The air smells faintly of salt and oil, a combination you've grown accustomed to, though sometimes you wonder if that scent will ever fade from your clothes. It's in these quiet moments alone with your thoughts that you remember the stories of other keepers, ones who, like you, battled the isolation of their post with a game or two. Your lips twitch at the memory of chess pieces carved from driftwood found along the shore. The nights uneven but recognizable, resembling more like dragons than horses. Your move, you once said nudging a pawn forward across the board, its surface etched with years of careful use. But tonight the board sits untouched, players absent in the wake of silent hours. Historians still debate whether light keepers of old developed their games as a pastime or survival strategy against the solitude of their posts. The night stretches long here, especially when words between you have dwindled over the weeks. Yet your partner's company is a comfort in its own right, a fellow soul sharing in the peculiar liminality of this life. You wonder if ancient sailors guided by this same light ever imagined the lives led in its shadow. You think of early navigators steering their wooden hulls through tempestuous seas, hearts filled with both adventure and homesickness emotions you find all too relatable on this lonely isle. Your reverie is broken by the creak of the staircase, signaling your partner's descent. "All clear up there," he murmurs, settling into the chair opposite you. There's no need for excessive chatter. A nod suffices, your shared understanding deepened by nights like these. A chill wind whistles through the slight cracks in the stonework, carrying with it the sound of the sea, a lullaby of waves, crashing in rhythmic crescendos. It's a chilly reminder of why those before you bundled in woolen layers, shuffling to keep warm amidst the stone's embrace. Without thinking, you rub your hands together briskly, feeling the warmth returning to your fingertips. You're suddenly aware of the thickness of the silence that settles after your partner yawns, eyes heavy with the promise of rest. It occurs to you with a hint of mischief that perhaps you could wake him in the morning with the sound of seagulls imitating their raspy caws until he stirs. Just like the time you woke him by mimicking a foghorn, both of you chuckling in the grip of shared delirium. He had returned the favor by clattering a pan lid next to your bunk, a playful reprisal that opened the day with laughter. The oil lamp flickers, casting playful shadows that sway across the room, a soothing dance of light you could almost call benevolent. It lulls you into an easy rhythm, your eyelids growing heavier with each repetition. You ponder whether previous keepers found solace in such simple patterns, battling the pull of isolation with light-hearted pranks and crafted games as their armor. The night continues its wax and wane, your thoughts wandering between the tales of old mariners who'd weathered similar darkness. Lives watched over by this very beacon, guiding them safely past hidden reefs and sandbars. What must they have thought as they sailed past, seeing the light flickering resolutely across the water? Perhaps they imagined the keepers within as stalwart and steady as the stones themselves, Finally, your partner settles under his blanket, the fabric rustling as he shifts into a comfortable nook. You can't help but smile. In another life, maybe he'd have been a poet pondering the romance of this existence as much as you do. As another wave crashes against the rocks with a harmonic thud, the lull of sleep beckons more insistently. You find yourself pondering with a wry smile. If one day the sea might just crawl up and carry you both away in your sleep, though in truth, the crumbling stone would more likely get the blame. But for tonight the stars twinkle with unwavering constancy, undisturbed by the play of time below. Above all else, this is your home for now, the lighthouse your kingdom. And in this kingdom shared silences and gentle rhythms are the language of the night weaving tales of their own, long after words have faded into a hushed twilight. You pull a blanket closer, the familiar weight, a calm, comforting hug wrapping around your shoulders. Outside, the sea's whispers become part of your dreaming, inviting you to drift on its whispers while the lighthouse keeps its vigilant watch. You find yourself standing on the deck of a vast ship, its ropes gently swaying to the rhythm of the ocean. The air is imbued with a tang of salt, mixing with the sharp spice of ginger. Around you, sailors employ peculiar rituals to fight off the groggy clutches of long sea voyages. One fellow nearby chews ginger, a practice both invigorating and admittedly jaw-tiring. This isn't exactly a cruise where you can just lounge about unless, of course, you fancy the idea of becoming a salty sailor yourself. You probably won't survive this naval lifestyle without some adaptation mechanisms. Over there, you notice another sailor soaking bread in vinegar, a technique believed to stave off scurvy before citrus fruits became all the rage. You imagine the sourness puckering your lips just by watching him. It's almost like a historical cooking show, albeit one where the recipes are meant more for survival than luxury. You pause, considering how far people are willing to go to keep their spirits afloat, and the thought lightly amuses you. Isn't that what sailors of the past often did? Find minor comforts in strange routines or rumored panaceas? The captain himself, a stern figure silhouetted against the pale horizon, believes that occasionally holding a spoonful of cold seawater can keep the brain alert. You have to wonder if it's the salting hitting the tongue or the sheer focus required not to accidentally swallow that actually does the trick. Historians still debate whether such odd practices held any genuine merit. But here, among the creaking wood and lapping waves, you sense a sort of camaraderie in shared bizarre rituals. The ship gently crests a wave, and you steady yourself on the rail, gazing out at the endless expanse. It's both daunting and beautiful, a canvas perpetually shifting. Strangely, the monotonous rise and fall of the ocean could lull you to sleep if not for the occasional crack of distant thunder or a seagull's cry overhead. Walking below deck offers an entirely different sensory experience. It's dim and cramped, the confined quarters echoing with the sounds of the ship. You pass by hammocks swinging lightly, occupying sailors who've succumbed to an exhausted slumber despite their known tricks. Though you expected a cacophony of scent from stale sweat to the earthy mold of damp wood, There's something undeniably soothing about the environment, the regularity of the ship's creaks, resembling a lullaby of sorts. You find it mildly amusing how history's eccentric survival strategies can create a kind of inelegant art form out of necessity. Like a sailor's peculiar choice between chewing ginger or balancing their fortitude on a teaspoon of seawater. Necessity breeds innovation, or at least experimentation. And you can't help but admire it, even as you wonder about their effectiveness. Feeling contemplative, you lean against the curved wall, closing your eyes to better hear the whispers of the ship around you. A fellow sailor sidles up, a kindly-faced man whose eyes betraying a lifetime of sun and salt. Don't look too deep into it, he chuckles, offering a slice of bread soaked in vinegar. Sometimes belief is half the battle, and the other half's luck. You smile, accepting the offering. It's moments like these shared with strange but steadfast companions that paint history, not just in battles and conquests, but in small acts of solidarity. Your thoughts wander to other legendary voyages, heroes and explorers before you, navigating uncharted waters, and the rituals they might have practiced to stay awake and alive. As the ship rocks gently beneath you, your mind drifts toward the future. The culinary concoctions of the present already seem less about mere survival, but the stories of past struggles and the remedies born from them remind you that every era carves its own peculiar wisdom. Thoughts of the endless sea and peculiar traditions play on as you stroll back onto the deck, the cool wind providing a brisk awakening. You wonder what else might have been swallowed both literally and metaphorically, in hopes of withstanding the relentless march of days and miles. Yet even as you ponder this, you feel a quiet reassurance in the repeating rhythm of ship and sea, reminiscent of an ancient lullaby, now holding you in its soothing embrace. The night settles around you, a soft blanket under the twinkling canopy, and you find comfort in each unique strategy shared, convinced that no matter the oddity, every measure by the sailors holds a story, a purpose, and a small dash of hope. The railway section house stands in the middle of a sprawling wilderness, surrounded by imposing forests and winding tracks that stretch like veins through the landscape. Logs pile up by the entrance, stacked hastily by men, long gone to their rest. As you wander closer, the air is damp and holds the earthy aroma of moss and wood, and perhaps a hint of coal dust carried over from heated engines that frequent the tracks. Watch your step, you murmur under your breath, noticing the slight gaps between the logs. Each one feels like a little test of your footing, a quaint obstacle on your journey into the past. Historians paint vivid pictures of the laborious logging activities here, yet they still debate whether these logs were meant exclusively for fuel, or if some were destined to become sawn lumber for construction projects. Inside the house, the lamps flicker, sporadically casting a rhythmic dance of shadows across the walls. The unreliable light creates an atmosphere of mystery and heightens your senses. You crane your neck, squinting as your eyes adjust, and get the bizarre sensation that the walls themselves have decided to share in the storytelling, leaning in closer like curious listeners. You find yourself chuckling softly, half from nervous energy, half at the thought that anyone trying to read a book here would probably lose the plot more often than not. Still, there's a strange charm to it. The wavering light highlighting the smudged drawings on the wall, which depict grand locomotives and mythical creatures cobbled from history and imagination. Through one of the cracked windows, you catch a glimpse of a rusted relic of a train carriage resting half buried in the earth outside. It's a somber sight, a monument to time's passage, and the locomotive clatter that once filled the air. Ah, the infamous night shift, you whisper to yourself, imagining the restless workers drifting through their duties, fighting the seductive pull of sleep. Was it here that a bleary-eyed operator once pulled the wrong lever, sending cars on unintended journeys? You feel a pang of empathy knowing that those moments of falter, those briefest lapses into dreamscapes, could have had long-lasting ripples across the threaded tracks of this region. The guilt of those sleepy missteps echoes through the history of this place. There are whispered stories of wrecks scattered like forgotten ghost tales, each leaving scars both literal and emotional on those whose paths crossed with them. Standing outside again, you inhale deeply. Behind you, the structure of the house groans as the wind nudges it ever so gently, while above the stars are beginning to break through the twilight, offering their soft, reassuring glow. You chuckle once more under your breath, kind of like the punchline no one gets, until years later you muse, tracing your hand along the wooden railing that is worn smooth from decades of passing hands. As you walk away, the night envelops you like a comforting blanket, that rustling hush of history just a heartbeat away. You can almost hear the faint hum of an engine in the distance, pleasant and steady, like a lullaby traveling through time. And yet beneath its calmness, there's a persistent curiosity that tugs at your mind. You wonder if those long-gone workers ever dreamed of the iron behemoths they serviced chugging tirelessly forward, or if they sought solace in simpler visions, a cozy fire, a warm meal, and the gently flickering lights of home. You draw in a breath as the sun peeks through the thick morning mist, its beams weaving through the velvety vapor like playful, golden fingers. It's as if the world is granting you permission to ease your grip on that old splintered railing by your side, to let your shoulders drop away from your ears, to unfold the tension that has gathered along your spine. You're standing on the edge of an ancient, charming ship whose age shows through its groaning timber and creaking rigging. It smells of the sea, of salt adventure, and a little too much of yesterday's catch. The sunlight fills the deck, transforming the wooden planks beneath your feet from dull, damp gray into something almost lively. Ah, there it is. You mumble to yourself, feeling the warmth seeping into your skin. It's less about the physical heat and more about the symbolic lift, as though the sun itself has draped an arm over your shoulder saying, "Don't worry, you've got this." Historians still debate whether sailors of yore actually believed that the sun god Ra hauled that burning disk across the sky each day in his celestial bark. You wonder if they ever truly imagined a boat quite like that, when for all its supernatural grandeur, Even the mighty Ra's bark might struggle with an unexpected headwind or a rogue wave on the vast seas of myth. A crew member with a weathered face like crumpled paper meanders by his pipe, dangling from his lips, exhaling soft swirling tendrils of smoke, a practiced exhalation without concern. "Mornin'," he grunts, barely glancing up, but offering just enough acknowledgement to tell you you're both in gentle conspiratorial agreement about the new day's gentle arrival. It's a sensation that whispers, "You're safe here." Something that once seemed laughably out of reach when you boarded this wooden beast. This ship, a temporal vessel of sorts, has paddled through more than just the physical seas. It's a ferry across Eris, visiting ports filled with the detritus of bygone civilizations. Though the ship creaks a tune that only old vessels seem to know, its rhythm is comforting like a lullaby hummed subconsciously. It reminds you of wandering through the sun-dappled rooms of a library, touching the spines of histories, chronicled by earnest old souls, histories full of debate and conjecture. One fact that's etched into today's pages involves the unsung brilliance of maritime navigation, the sextant, a marvel that lined up stars with the horizon and didn't even need to ask for directions. High-tech space-age stuff, really, a historical GPS minus the condescending recalculating voice. Their invention, born from an age when getting lost was a more permanent affair than just seeing which side the bread landed, butter side down on showcases human endeavor at its finest and most confusingly perplexing, just like how you still wonder why toast always falls that way. Your hands find solace resting against the railing, now a tactile affirmation of your place here among the layers of history folding over themselves like waves. Occasionally you catch a snippet of conversation from the past, carried by these winds. The accents and languages, a sweetly dissonant tide of eras and sentiments. Mind the rigging. Someone calls out an echo from centuries ago, or just one from the present crew. Sometimes it's hard to tell. This ship's like the sun, in a way granting you the gift of stillness as it sails through the ever-flowing river of time. It allows you to rest a moment, to inhale deeply, and to release gently, reminding you that the shore will always be just over the horizon. Finally, you permit yourself a small smile that mingles with the morning breeze. Your eyes flutter closed as the warmth of the sun holds court in the sky. You feel yourself easing into the gentle rocking motion of the ship, the sea's calm embrace matching your own slowly unfurling sense of peace. Here at the dawn of another day on this timeless journey, letting go is an act of grace, even if only for this moment. As the sun dispels the mist, entirely sharpening the world around you, you know that this too is part of the magic, where history becomes a shared dream, cradled by the nurturing light of a new day. Long after they retired or passed on the lenses, they tended still turned. Some say their rhythms echo the keeper's pacing eternally awake. You stand at the edge of the ocean, where the vast sky meets a rolling horizon. The night air wraps around you like a gently worn blanket, its salty tang invigorating your senses. The rhythmic crash of waves against the cliffside becomes a heartbeat steady and soothing against the stillness of the world, punctuated only by the creak of the wooden pier underfoot. You gently pace towards the great lighthouse, its towering figure outlined against the velvet tapestry of stars. Its beam cuts through the dark like a watchful eye, eternally vigilant. As you step across the threshold, the scent of oil and old wood greets you, familiar, comforting. Some say it's been like this since the day it was built, its keepers leaving traces of themselves in every turn of the lens and every echoing footstep. The soft flicker of a flame casts long shadows across the curved walls. Your fingertips graze the worn banister as you ascend the spiral staircase, your feet tracing the grooves worn by countless others. You wonder if those keepers really believed their duties would transcend generations. Their continuous rhythms etched into the lighthouse more eternally than their names. Up here, time seems malleable, stretching and bending with each thoughtful step. You reach the lantern room where the massive Fresnel lens spins slowly, a hypnotic ballet of glass and light. It's almost romantic how such a complex creation owes its existence to a spectacle of mathematics and optics, a nod to Augustin Jean Fresnel, whose genius redefined the way light could be focused, though I imagine he'd have never thought it would become a nocturnal bedtime tale. For a moment you pause to marvel at its perfection, each facet meticulously crafted, each rotation purposeful. Isn't it funny how something so calculated can feel so alive? The legends say the lens continues to move by itself, like the hands of invisible watchmen, unable to rest, even in the grip of time's slumber. Historians still debate whether the lighthouse keeper's own dreams intertwined so deeply with their work that even their spirits maintain this vigil. Leaning closer, you gaze into the heart of the lens, where light bends and redirects a guiding star for passing ships. Your mind wanders to the keepers who once tended these beacons long ago. You can almost see them now, clad in woolen garments, forever walking through the night, accompanying ghosts of sailors who depended on these beams to guide them safely home. Perhaps you muse, those keepers were the original multitaskers, managing light and lightening hearts during stormy nights. As you lean against the sill, a breeze dances through the narrow windows, carrying with it the whispers of the sea. It's as if these walls listen and remember, sometimes sharing their secrets and stories with those who pause to listen closely. Did the keepers hear it too, or were they too engrossed in their duties? Best not to dwell, you think, as the warmth of the lantern embraces you. Down below, the faint clatter of lifebuoys in the breeze pulls you back. You imagine yourself among those mariners of old, at the mercy of sea and storm, capturing a glimpse of that reassuring light just in time. The thought sparks a faint smile. I'm sure the only thing more stressful than steering a ship would be trying to maintain your pirate-like composure when all you got was a cup of weak tea and soggy biscuits at the lighthouse. It's time to continue on. You decide, the allure of the past slowly pulling you back into the night. There's an odd reassurance in knowing the lighthouse and its keepers have shared this eternal solitude, one faithfully guarding the other in life's own endless rhythm. As you breathe deeply, the air stirs softly around you, caressing your skin like a gentle promise. Out of respect or perhaps simple curiosity, though you can never know the exact nature, the understanding remains that those long relinquished watches continue captured in the lull of the rotating beacon spinning ever on. The lighthouse stands stalwart against the encroaching night, its vigil uninterrupted by time's passage or the absence of its keepers. The light turns a steadfast hand, tracing the years, watching as days drift into rekindled dreams. Nestled in the tenderness of twilight, you realize how closely the lighthouse mirrors our own stories guiding, watching sometimes, even lighting the way for others. And maybe, just maybe, this singular relationship ties humanity into the forevers, no matter how peaceful or turbulent the seas may be. As you step away, the call of gentle waves begins to fade behind the murmur of contented nightfall. The lighthouse, less a relic of times past and more a bright chapter of the ongoing tale of resilience, continues undeterred light, dancing against darkness, its silent melody never ending. In this quiet place, you found an echo of your own rhythm, sparked by an ending note from those keepers who walked before. You breathe slowly, imagining you can feel the pace of their steps alongside your own. The soft darkness that enfolds you offers a serene lullaby of the night, where light and time intertwine with the steady turns of a lens, forever pulsing, with life pulsing with the keeper's footsteps, like whispers of dreams that resonate with the past and present in knowing harmony. And so, as the lighthouse stands over the gentle waves guiding you drift tenderly onward, cradled by the echoes of their enduring watch, bathed in the warm embrace of storytelling, like the beams amidst gales, you allow yourself to slowly, gently rest.